Hello, welcome to Christus Fidelis, the program dealing with the faithful people of Christ. Today we have a special program from Boynton Beach, Florida, and we welcome to Christus Fidelis the President Rector of St. Vincent de Paul Major Seminary, Regional Seminary, Monsignor David Toops. Welcome, Monsignor. Well, I guess you should be welcoming us.
Yes, welcome to Boynton Beach.
Yes.
We're very happy to have you here.
Well, first I'd like to get some idea of how long you've been here as the President Rector of the seminary, and where you came from.
Sure. Well, a little history. I'm 22 years ordained priest for the Diocese of St. Petersburg, so from the central west coast. Mm-hmm. But I grew up in South Louisiana. Oh. And like most Floridians, my family migrated at some point when I was a junior in high school. Yeah. So I ended up studying for a few years in the Diocese of Orlando. I went to Florida Southern College in Lakeland.
Really?
Yes. Halfway through college, I discerned my vocation to the priesthood, and in fact had that adult awakening of the faith, and just said, what am I doing with my life, and what am I doing to make a difference in the world? And really said, well, I have to try the seminary. I have to go. I'm not sure I'm going to be a priest, but I need to try this. Well, I went, and it stuck. So I entered in 1991, and in 1997 I was ordained for the Diocese of St. Petersburg, served a number of years in a parish, was eventually sent back to finish my doctoral studies in Rome, served here at this seminary for 3 years. Then I worked at the Bishops' Conference in Washington for 3 years, and was a pastor after that in Tampa, and now I'm in my 7th year as rector here of St. Vincent de Paul.
Did you go to the seminary here?
You know what? I did not, which is why I've now come here twice on faculty. When you don't come as a student, you get to come back later.
Where did you go to the seminary?
I studied at the North American College in Rome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this seminary, because I know this. There's some sort of an illustrious history. It started from. Well, it's not really It's really in West Palm Beach, or I guess it was Miami at the time.
Correct.
When it was started.
Correct. In 1963, the Archbishop of Miami at the time, Coleman Carroll, founded the seminary. This was all part of the Archdiocese of Miami. And he invited the Vincentian Fathers, a religious order, to come and run the seminary. So what began as an Archdiocese seminary run by a religious community, through the years has become a regional seminary owned by all 7 dioceses of Florida. We're the only regional seminary in the country that's equally owned. Even though we're in now the Diocese of Palm Beach, we're kind of extraterritorial. We're like maybe a good analogy for people is an interparochial elementary school. It's owned by 3 or 4 local parishes and belongs to each of them, and their children go. So our children, our seminarians throughout the state come here, and people say to me, oh my gosh, you have to answer to 7 bishops. That must be awful. I said, no, you got it all wrong. We have 7 dioceses that support us, that send us faculty, that send us students, that help to finance the important mission we have of training our future priests. So it's really a tremendous blessing.
True. No, each of the dioceses of Florida has a professor here, or 1 or 2 professors here.
Correct. All the dioceses of Florida are represented on our faculty.
That's great. Now, when did the Vincentians leave here?
Vincentians left in 1973. So for 10 years, they ran the seminary. In 73, it was handed over back to the Archdiocese of Miami, and that's when it began to expand in its scope of becoming a regional and a bilingual seminary.
Yeah, we attended the Mass this morning, and it was in Spanish, and I was thinking, this is probably the only bilingual seminary in the country.
We are the only bilingual theologate. Our college seminary in Miami, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, our college seminary is also bilingual. So our bishops had great foresight to say, you know, the trend in our nation is that we are a growing immigrant church, as really the Catholic Church has always been, and that it will be important for Spanish to be known, spoken by our Anglo students, and that our native Spanish speakers become fluent and able to be proficient in English so that we can minister to whomever we are sent.
That's very interesting, because I myself attended studies up in Ottawa, Ontario, and even though it was bilingual, nobody was really required to speak French. you know, either attended French classes or you attended English classes. This seminary requires all the seminarians to participate in both languages and to help that understanding.
It's been essential.
Cultures.
It's been essential. So every other day we alternate languages. So the Liturgy of the Hours, the Eucharist, 30% of our coursework is offered in both languages, and everybody is in actual language class, studying their English to get better, studying Spanish to get better, so that they can be certainly functionally bilingual to minister in their
And what better way to
parishes.
learn and to pray in the language?
Absolutely.
You know, that's
Absolutely.
important. The seminary has grown over the past couple of years as well, too. Is that correct?
Thanks be to God, and a lot of prayers from the faithful in each of our dioceses. 12 years ago, we were at 58 students. Today, we're at 106. So I think that's very hopeful for the people of God to realize the seminary is growing. Not only the number of seminarians from our diocese in Florida, but we have also broadened our reach as a regional seminary to include seminarians from Atlanta, from Savannah, from Charleston. We've also invited a few religious communities to come and do their theological studies here as well.
You have some people from gentlemen from the Caribbean islands as well.
We do. We've always had a history because we're in South Florida and we're kind of the gateway to the United States. We have a gentleman from Kingston, Jamaica. Next year we'll have another man from the Bahamas. There have been times we have Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. So it's a great service to Latin-speaking countries to send men here too for the very same reason, so that they can be bilingual and minister to their people in the islands in both languages.
Now, you had mentioned something about the minor seminary and major seminary. I don't think a lot of people know what the difference is. And so maybe you might explain that.
So in Florida, we have two seminaries. St. John Vianney College Seminary in Miami, and here in Boynton Beach, St. Vincent de Paul Regional Seminary. So we call it a minor seminary. It's a college seminary. So if a man discerns priesthood coming out of high school or halfway through college, as in my own case, they have to complete an undergraduate degree. We major in philosophy and do a minor in theology. It's also a pre-theology program. So if someone has a college degree, they still have 2 years of prep work to do before they enter theology. So St. John Vianney has both college and pre-theology. And here at St. Vincent's, we have a very similar pre-theology program for someone coming in, and then a 5-year program, including a pastoral internship right in the middle. So our theology program, 2 years of theology, then they return to their home diocese to do an intensive internship, learning the life of a parish. It's very helpful for their discernment and their pastoral growth. And they return for their final 2 years of theological studies and graduate with a master's degree in theology.
Now that has changed over the years. It used to be theology was only like 4 years. Now it's gone to 5. That's been recent, isn't it?
We have, through the years, pre-theology didn't used to exist. Then we said we have to give guys coming out of a career or college, they have to have some foundation. When I was in the seminary, that was 1 year. About 15 years ago, it became 2 years. Our program used to just be 4 years of theology. And about, we've had it quite a while. About 25 years ago, we inserted the pastoral year right in the middle. In fact, Father Stephen Park's class was the first class that had the mandatory pastoral year. So it goes back quite a ways.
That was sort of, was that a dictate from the Vatican with that part, or
the pastoral year? No, we're one of the only seminaries that have a mandatory pastoral year. A number of seminaries have something similar, but very few have a whole year where they spend the life in the parish. We find it essential because a man gets to discern and live in a parish setting through the whole liturgical cycle. They're not only studying theology here, but then they're living the life in a parish and really able to ask the question, is this what I want to do for the whole of my life?
Now, a lot of people think that when a guy goes to a seminary and they learn how to say Mass, and that's about it. So could you give us an idea of what the courses are, what they're being taught, other than philosophy and basic theology, but where, how are we preparing our guys?
Sure. Well, let me step back and give a broader view of what we call the 4 dimensions of priestly formation. So Pope John Paul II in 1992 kind of revolutionized priestly formation through a document called Pastores Dabo Vobis, I will give you shepherds. And in it, he delineated the importance of these 4 dimensions: human formation, spiritual formation, intellectual formation, and pastoral formation. Now, I'll give a little bit of each. Sure. Human formation. We have men in our society today who sometimes haven't been given the very foundational aspects of what it is to be a Christian gentleman, sure. What it is to just be a fully integrated human. And so we spend a lot of time working with men on the basic dimensions of what it is to be a good Christian gentleman. Mm-hmm. Spiritual formation, training them, teaching them through spiritual direction, through conferences, through classes, through annual retreats, what it is to be in communion with God, what it is to be a man of prayer, how to be able to teach the people of God how to be men and women of prayer, and ultimately how to make us saints. Yeah. That's the goal of spiritual formation. Intellectual formation is what we were just talking about, the question about what is the academic program? Sure. What does it take to receive a master's degree in theology? We have a very intensive 130-hour master's degree program, which would encompass all of sacred scriptures, the Code of Canon Law, which you can appreciate yes. as a canon lawyer, moral theology, yeah. Sexual morality, medical ethics, sacraments, what we would call the systematic theology, mm-hmm. sacraments, Trinity, Christology, the scope of who, if you looked at the creed and you broke down each section of the creed, that would essentially be different levels and areas of coursework. And also pastoral counseling. How do we help our men to really enter into dialogue, to be good listeners, sure. to help the people that come to us? And then the 4th dimension is pastoral formation. Again, part of that is the pastoral year. Part of that are pastoral assignments they do even in the midst of their coursework. And these 4 dimensions are meant to be completely interwoven. They don't stand as individual silos, but you're constantly integrating the human, the spiritual, the pastoral, the intellectual, so that at the end of the day, at ordination, we have a man who is integrated. Mm-hmm. And that's really a key word for us. What is it to be the man that Christ created us to be, so that we can minister to the people of God in a very deep, profound, holistic way. Yeah.
Now, you have this seminary. It's only for people who are studying for the Roman Rite, or I noticed that you have some other rituals involved in this.
I'm glad you asked that question. We have one of our seminarians who is Indian in background, and his diocese is the eparchy of the Syro-Malabar mm-hmm. Rite. So Syro-Malabar is one of the ancient churches. I think many people, when it comes to the Eastern churches, we have very little idea. Yep. And the idea is that in the Roman Catholic, in our Roman Catholic church tradition, the largest section is the Latin Rite. Well, yeah. that's us. That's the average Catholic church is a Latin Rite church. But there are, I think, and you could correct me as a canon lawyer, I think there are 26 different rituals in the church, one of them being Syro-Malabar. So we've always had an openness to other rites of the church studying here, and it really kind of adds to the breadth of our tradition.
Well, thank you, and we'll be looking forward to talking with you still. So please stay tuned to watch more of Christa Fidelis from St. Vincent de Paul Regional Seminary. Welcome back to Christa Fidelis, and we continue our special program at St. Vincent de Paul Regional Seminary with Kyle Fennessy, who is one of our seminarians here in the Diocese of Orlando. Now, Kyle, what year are you in the seminary?
I'm in theology 2.
Theology 2. And you, how long have you been here at St. Vincent de Paul?
This is my second year here.
Second?
Yeah, I already had a college degree, so I did 2 years down in Miami studying philosophy in their pre-theology program. And now I'm in my second year here.
So what was it that you studied before?
I studied mechanical engineering.
Mechanical.
At Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Yeah.
That's right. And so, how was the changeover? How was I mean, that's quite a shift from mechanical engineering to priesthood.
Yeah, it's been quite the adventure. Yeah. What do you want, the 30-second version or the 2-minute version?
No, give me go on.
Goodness. Well, I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. That's where my parents still are and my siblings. And I came to Florida 9 years ago to go to Embry-Riddle, study engineering. I've always had this passion for math and science. And I'm like, what's the coolest thing I could do with math and science? I'm like, let's go work in the aerospace industry. And so that was the goal. After my freshman year at Embry-Riddle, I had an internship at Johnson Space Center in the robotics division, which was a lot of fun. I mean, they treated us really well, and we got to work on some really cool projects. Really getting hands-on design experience. And it was actually there that a shift occurred to me. We were at the Sonny Carter neutral point. The neutral buoyancy lab is named after Sonny Carter, who was an astronaut who paid for his PhD while playing professional soccer.
Wow. And
encountering that kind of biographical fact, I was like, oh, if I want to work in the aerospace industry with this kind of background dream of becoming an astronaut, I'm like, if I want this, it's going to have to become everything, to the point where it'd have to be my God. Honestly, like all my focus, all my life energy would have to go into pursuing that dream. And it was at that point I'm like, I don't want my career to be my God. And that's what really started to kind of open my heart up more of like, okay, God, I've had these, this white knuckle grip on all of my plans for my life, just all this, this structure, this 10-year plan kind of laid out. And that's when I first started to question, like, all right, God, what do you want? What do you have in store? And through my involvement with campus ministry and the local pastor there from the Basilica of St. Paul, and just seeing his leadership within the community as a priest, and as my faith started to grow and deepen, there became this whisper. Every time I was quiet in prayer or on a retreat or sometimes at Mass, I just felt this gentle nudge, this invitation to consider the priesthood.
Was your family very religious?
I'd say so, yeah. My mom, always volunteering at the parish, and growing up, whether I liked it or not, she was signing me up for retreats and forcing me to go to religious ed. And at the time, I didn't appreciate it very much. But throughout high school, especially through like a Steubenville Youth Conference, so I really encountered the Lord, and His love for me for the first time was after my freshman year.
When you enter the seminary, and we've been listening to several of the teachers and the people that help lead you in this, they say, well, you come to the seminary to judge whether this is the right path for you. Yeah. But also, it's not only you, but they judge you as well to see if you're the right candidate for the right person. So how do you experience that? Have you experienced that somewhat?
Yes, very much so. I think the best analogy that's not perfect is the equivalent of dating, in a way. In a serious, intentional Catholic relationship, I feel you don't just date, recreationally. It's okay. Is the Lord calling me to spend the rest of my life married to this person? And so. But at the same time, you don't propose on the first date. That's just weird. So same with entering seminary was like, okay, there's this desire with this intentionality for priesthood, but also this interplay of the church is discerning me if I'd be a good fit to serve the church in this capacity. And then also for me, is this really, it's a chance, seminary is kind of this chance to verify those desires of like, okay, this is the desire I came in. Is it true? Let's test it. And let's grow with it.
So, what exactly is the seminary? How the seminary helping you achieve this?
Oh, God. There's so many layers to that. I think the 4 pillars of formation are tangible. It sounds like, oh, it's just a program. No, they help. The spiritual and the human, the intellectual, and the pastoral elements. It's all about the whole person. It's all about the whole person. It's okay, maybe some guy, or maybe I would have good capacities for the administrative side of things, which isn't the most, that's not the goal of coming into the seminary, but doesn't line up with the whole person. And so seminary, I think, for me, has really opened me up and challenged me to grow into the fullness of who God created Kyle to be. I remember my first semester down in Miami at St. John Vianney. They had opportunity for us to go to a symphony. And first I'm like, I don't need all that, artsy, stuff. And then first time I went, I think the first time I went, I cried. I'm like, this is so beautiful, and it's kind of like opened up my humanity in a way. I'm like, and allowed Jesus to enter into that, and like allowed me to kind of grow in emotional affectivity as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, the first 2 years, was it you had to go back to college?
Yeah.
How was that? I know because I did the same thing. So I know what, how did you handle that?
One step at a time. That's been my motto for all of seminaries, just one step at a time. At first it was, so I've graduated, finished my engineering degree in December 2014, entered seminary in August 2015.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so going there in the pre-theology program for guys who already had a college degree, it was good. It was very humbling, and it was also very healing for me. A lot of my undergrad education was really concerned about my GPA and my reputation or the professor's opinion of me as a student. Going to St. John Vianney and realizing like I can just learn and grow as a person without, and grades still matter to an extent, but I wasn't obsessed with performing as much as I was being formed as a person. Yeah.
So how was the difference between those 2 years and now these past 2 years?
Academically, the transition is from philosophy to theology, and so philosophy, I think, just opened me up to consider a different perspective and worldview that I wasn't accustomed to, coming from strictly math and sciences and engineering. And we used to kind of kid around like, oh, the business majors, what do they know, or something. And then coming to philosophy, I'm like, wow, my intellectual scope is so narrow. And so the philosophy really opened me up. And then here, now with that foundation, being able to kind of absorb theology a lot easier and better and kind of more comprehensively. And it's been a real joy to kind of dive into the church's teachings more intentionally here within the theology program.
What do you think this is the best thing that this seminary has done for you?
I think just the community.
Yeah.
I mean, and I mean that in the brotherhood, a place where I can have the freedom to experience God's love for me, and the rhythm of life has been so liberating, of just this time to just study and pray and repeat. and with the fraternity as well, and like the freedom from, like the people of God are so generous, like we don't have to work full time. I probably would if I had the opportunity, but now it's kind of this freedom, like, okay, I can focus on my studies and my prayer and develop these habits and truly become the person that God created me to be, to best serve. And so the community that's offered here holistically, between just the setting where we are in Boynton Beach, and my brothers, and then the priests here too, are just a real inspiration that just they really shepherd and mentor us in a really loving, pastoral way, and guide us and give us the nudges we need in the right direction. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about this seminary that maybe you let us know?
About the seminary, the food is really good. That's been great. Goodness, we are St. Vincent de Paul. We have the #1 soccer team in the state right now. I will say that.
Are you on the soccer team?
I am.
Yeah, I figured that.
I'm not gonna. It doesn't matter that there's only 2 soccer teams in the state, and we only play once a semester. We'll let that go. Any other secrets at St. Vincent de Paul? I'm trying to think. We play a mean game of Super Smash Brothers after lunch every now and then for about 10 minutes before studying. Just that hand-eye coordination, essential for ministry. Just the fellowship has been fantastic.
Well, thank you, Kyle, for sharing this time and letting us know what the inside deal of being in the seminary is all about.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This has been Christa Fidelis, the program about the faithful people of Christ, and we hope you continue to join us. And meanwhile, remember that we are all the face of Christ to others, so let us try to live that way. Amen.